Hey guys, Drifter here. It's been a while since I've had an epic dream, but I did have one recently and I thought I would share it with all of you. For those of you that are unfamiliar with this series, I would very highly recommend that you look down in the description and there's a link to episode 1 that you click that and start watching there, and the rest of this will make a lot more sense. For those of you that absolutely won't do this because you don't feel like it, basically sometimes I have some very long, elaborate, interesting, or in other words, epic dreams, and I like to make a commentary out of them. The gameplay that you're seeing here is me using the shotgun on I forget the name of this map. Turbine. Yes, Turbine. I'm going to be scavenging weapons, playing. I'm going to do good sometimes, going to do bad other times. I would call this honest gameplay. It's my normal gameplay. When I'm trying to tell a story, I prefer for you to get a feel for how I was playing when I was thinking about these things. And the dream in question is sort of a personification or a narration of my brain trying to understand very complex ideas. I was thinking about a lot of things like multiple dimensions, dimensionality, parallel universe, all that sort of stuff, and also the way that we perceive things, just physically with our eyes and ears, and how we deal with these wavelengths and sound lengths and these sort of things. And my brain turned it into a story. Some of the influences in these story are as follows. This will help you understand it a bit. While I was in LA, Jordan was telling me about his superpowers. Apparently he has a power called super tasting. He was born with 3 times as many taste buds as normal, so while we thought he was a picky eater, apparently the things that taste a little bit bad to us taste extremely bad to him, and we convinced him to start work on a short sketch about it where he goes around licking people, trying to see if they're a murderer, just like licking the floor like a dog following a trail, and it was going to be sort of a detective video. So I was thinking about how that could be funny. Also, Bruce Willis is going to show up in a little bit. Like I said, it starts off a bit comical, and for those of you that are familiar with the movie John Dies at the End, it does seem to borrow a bit from that, because I have watched that recently. It was kind of on my brain. While it was a comical and crude movie in some ways, in other ways it was a very complex movie. Anyway, let's move on to the actual story. In this story, there is a fictionalized drifter who is living in a fictionalized version of New York City. It's a place that I've never been in my life and that I only understand from watching documentaries or perhaps from seeing it on TV. Also in the city, I'm a detective. You're kind of as seen on TV detective, hunting bad guys, criminals, murders, rapists, and all the like. My partner is an old and grizzled Bruce Willis, not the young Bruce Willis that likes to take gold bars and go on silly adventures with Samuel L. Jackson, but the older one, more like the Sin City Bruce Willis, the grumpy one, the cop that's seen too much and is there to show me the ropes and kind of keep me in line with everything. And we are solving crimes, hunting people, and I'm mostly doing this on the Metro. That's my specialty, is the underground train system, which I'm probably borrowing from my initial experiences riding the LA Metro, because it's not something I've ever done before. Texas and most of the southeastern cities don't really have much in the way of public transit. And while I'm down there, I kind of get this feeling. It's an old childish feeling, kind of like the one you would get when you were little and you were lost in the woods, or you went someplace that you considered to be special or magical, and the rest of the world almost fell off the map. The boundaries of the world and the boundaries of the things around you were defined by your ability to perceive. The best way I could describe this would be if you've ever seen one of those haunted house rides with the lights on. It's just one big open room and your train goes around on tracks, but when you turn the lights off and you can only see 2 feet in front of you, the walls kind of create themselves. This can also be done in a good way. I used to have a special hiding place as a child out in it wasn't a forest, it was more like a private orchard or a private area by my house, but the trees were overgrown such that you could only see sunlight and rays that would, break down from the branches, kind of like angels ascending to heaven, and you could go out there and play all day, nobody would bother you. So it was kind of its own special little place. You can also see this, like in a scary movie, the haunted house is so ominous and so big that it becomes its own thing. And I was realizing that my specialty down there in the subway was kind of like this, that when I stepped into the subway tunnels, it was like stepping into its own particular world. And that while I was down there, I didn't think about anything else. I didn't think about the sun, I didn't think about the people above, I didn't think about anything that was going on. And I was wondering if your location is tied to your ability to perceive, that if you could not perceive where you were, would there be any way to say that you were really there or not? And that sounds kind of abstract and it sounds kind of silly, but have you ever sat there and thought about where you are right now? Right now, most of you are probably sitting down or perhaps walking at a slow pace while listening to this video. You are walking on a big global rock. It is just a big rock in space, but then when you zoom out a little bit, you realize it's more like a speck of dust floating a slightly smaller but hotter, orbiting a slightly smaller but hotter speck of dust that's in a giant cloud of specks of dust that is moving around at billions of trillions of miles an hour in trajectories and motions and orbits that we can't even hope to fully map or predict, or at least I can't right now. Of course, we can do it with supercomputers, but I'm not going to go through all that mathematics on the top of my head. And that's only in 3 dimensions. We haven't considered moving in a 4th dimension dimension, which is by itself because we cannot perceive it to be an abstract concept. These are the things I'm thinking about, and I'm wondering, why are you here? Why am I here? Why is anything here at all in this particular subway? Why can't it be something else? And the simple answer is, well, it can't because it's not. And I'm like, well, why not? How not? Who not? And what could I do to change this? And while I'm thinking about this, I kind of get this feeling. It's a feeling that I've had for a long time, not necessarily when I'm dreaming, but just kind of all the time, that there's something else just behind me, that if I could just let go for a minute and fall and relax, I could just slip through the cracks of the world and pop up somewhere else, that there's something so close I can feel it in my backbone, that I can almost taste it and smell it, but I'm just out of reach. I just don't understand where to go because I'd have to move in a dimension that my particular kind of people are not made for moving in or understanding for that matter. And I get this feeling that it's now the time to let go, that I should let go and just lean back and fall. And it feels so strong and so right that even in the dirty, dingy bathroom in the metro, I just put my arms to my side like the lady on Titanic or like Jesus being crucified and lean backward and fall. And when I'm expecting to slam into the bottom of the dirty bathroom in the subway tunnel, I actually fall through that. It's kind of like falling through the floor, as if the floor was a mirror of your real self, and as soon as you touch yourself in the mirror, you pop across the other side instantaneously, like crossing across a border, or crossing through a border or a barrier that you didn't know was there. And instead of falling down and hitting, I fall up. I am immediately bounced up off the ground and forward facing into the mirror. And like, ooh, well, that's a little bit weird. What in the world happened here? I think perhaps I am too sleepy, I'm overworking, I'm not doing my job properly, and I need to leave. And I get up and walk around, and I notice that everything about the metro is just a little bit different down there. That the subway is, more or less the same, but the graffiti's in the wrong places, and I think that the overall color scheme has changed a little bit, and it just has kind of a funny feeling about it. I ride the metro home, and everything seems more or less okay at home, but some of my items are out of place. Some of them are a little bit different. It's not drastically different, just a little bit, just enough to kind of make me wonder. And the city seems somewhat strange and alien, even though all of the streets are in the same places and I see the same familiar faces. There's something kind of wrong about it. But flipping over to the news to see what's going on for the day, I see that all the stories are opposite. They're inverted of what they should be. All of the heroes are now enemies, and all of the enemies are now heroes, and the opinions are polar, and that the one network that was once liberal is now conservative, and vice versa. And it's scary. I'm starting to not get a feel for what's going on. Maybe I'm just tripping balls here. I'm going to go to bed, wake up the next day, drive down, start my job investigating crimes in the metro, hooking up with Bruce Willis, not hooking up, meeting up with Bruce Willis. Two very different things there with very different meanings. And he's kind of an ass. He's not nice like he used to be. He's not friendly. To say that he would be evil or mean would be incorrect, but instead of being a gruff old man with a friendly inner heart, he's just a slightly cheery old man, but with a really cold, calculating heart, like the opposite of what he used to be. And I'm starting to get a little bit sweaty here, a little bit worried, and I go and I decide, something's weird here. I got to go talk to my boss and tell him that this guy's unstable. The boss in this particular dream was once a friendly lady in her mid-50s, kind of skinny, kind of tall, and Coulter-ish blonde, like a evil predator woman almost when she needed to be. But she was friendly and good-natured, and I go to talk to her here, and she's an absolute, total bitch. Just no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And it's kind of weird, as I walk around, I notice in the same department that some of the people that used to be total assholes are really nice, and some of the people that were assholes some of the people that were nice are now total assholes. And it's starting to dawn on me that I've woken up somewhere that I don't belong, that I'm definitely not in my world, and I keep thinking about it, and I realize, thinking back to the bathroom, that I actually took a step in the fourth dimension. I took a step in a direction that I wasn't supposed to step in, and I didn't bounce up off the floor to look into the new mirror. I actually bounced through a different direction, and the gravity pulled me up and popped me up where I should have been to begin with. This is really strange, and I'm starting to feel scared and kind of maybe I'm out of place in this world, but it's not really that different, which is so strange because all of the people are different. They're the polar opposite personalities of whatever they used to be, but the world isn't very different. A lot of people think, if the world were different, it would be radically different. If our morality was backwards, then the world wouldn't exist the way it would, but In this particular place, it did. It was like watching moral relativism in action, or watching some economist show that morals don't matter, or that something so completely polar opposite can yield very, very similar results. It was like a philosophical exercise in action. Very, very interesting. But I also kind of got this feeling that I was being watched. Maybe it was a paranoid feeling that I was in a place that I shouldn't have been in. I thought people would know that this isn't the real Drifter, that something's changed about him too. But I just couldn't shake this feeling that I was being watched. And I went back to the same bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and I thought, okay, we're going to do this again, and we're going to go back home, and everything's going to be fine, and it's going to be dandy. And I look, and I kind of remember what it was I was last time. I was kind of remembering that where you are, it doesn't necessarily where you have to be, and that there's more places to step than one, and that feeling that isolation, feeling the specialness, the magic of a place was what allowed me to step or reflect back to where I was. So I did the same thing. I fell backwards, hit the ground. I didn't hit it. I just kind of fell through it and boom, bounced back up in the mirror. And I felt good. I was a little scared, but I felt fairly confident that I was going to come back to where I was. I was a little bit worried that I might go somewhere else. And I go outside, back to the metro. It looks the way it used to before. The people were the same. I go talk to my old Bruce Willis. He's a gruff but nice fellow again. And it feels a little bit alien coming back home. It feels a little bit different, that I haven't even been gone hardly a full day, maybe not even that, but experiencing something so radically different and then coming back to what you're familiar with, it just leaves a weird sort of taste in your mouth, a little tingle in your spine that, is this really the way it was meant to be? What if the other world was the real world, and that's how people were supposed to be and how it was meant to be, and my world is the fake one? What if my world is the hokey, ridiculous one? And then what if there's more than this? What if there's some others, multitudes going on, and that it could be totally different? And I'm walking around experiencing things, and I just get this feeling that I'm being watched, and for some reason all of the dogs are looking at me. It seems fairly random, yes, I know, but I just don't like these dogs for some reason. Their little beady black eyes keep staring at me. Where are all the dogs with yellow eyes and colors and stuff? These little bastards with black beady eyes, I don't like it. And I do this another time or two, and I pop back and forth between the worlds and walk around a little bit, and increasingly getting more paranoid and less sure of my existence. And I'm wondering, when I'm bouncing back and forth, what is the other Drifter doing? What is he doing? Is he also perhaps the opposite of myself, which I consider myself to be a good person? I'm sure this opposite would also. If he's an ass, then he discovered the same thing. Is he showing up in my good, nice world ruining things? Am I, making him a goody two-shoes in what I would consider to be the bad world? Or is it vice versa? I don't even understand these things. And I get this other funny kind of idea in my head that I've only been bouncing back and forth between two places, and surely there's lots of more places, aren't there? There could be just two worlds, but what if there are many worlds? What if there's an up world, a down world, a left world, a right world, a kappa, gamma, alpha, beta, world? What if there's thousands of them? What if I wanted to go somewhere else? And I'm sitting there thinking about this on the subway, and I'm thinking about maybe I could just kind of lean to the right and fall to the right and watch things rotate, and that would sort of rotate on a sphere, and it would be different, and I could go and see what a very, very different place would be like. And that's when the dog, it was a particularly small poodle that a woman on the train was sitting with, just sort of arched its head and looked at me. And I found this to be very alien, of course, that a dog would immediately snap to me while I'm thinking about something weird. But I also noticed something else, and that was that the rest of the train has kind of slowed down, and the air is thickened, and that there seems to be waves floating by, like I'm sitting in a microwave here from Black Ops 2. Like, it's like I feel like I'm being choked a little bit, and that something weird is going on here that shouldn't necessarily be going on. And the dog looks at me, and its little black eyes start to get bigger and bigger, and I realize the eyes aren't getting bigger, but the skin around the eyes is starting to peel back and reveal that not necessarily are there two round eyes, but round tips to these long tentacle-like orbs that are pulling back from its head, and the skin around the mouth pulls back. Dogs have that little black flaps around their teeth. All that seems to shred back, and more this little dog is turning into one of those evil mutant dogs from the movie The Thing. And I realize that the animals have been watching me, and that I have been being watched, and that I wasn't alone here. And the dog looks at me and speaks with a very inhuman and alien voice and says, you're just moving to the next world over, right? And I was like, well, I'm tripping balls here. I'm like, well, what? You what? And the dog says, yes, like, you think you're special, you think you're really smart, you're only moving between two worlds. Do you have any idea how many there are? And I'm starting to get a little bit worried here, and I just, like, well, I don't know how many there are, but why does it matter to you? And the dog tells me that your people aren't made for this. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to stay in one world. You can't understand all the other worlds. You're not smart enough for this. And I start lecturing him, blah, blah, blah. Well, obviously I have done it. I've been doing it. And then I'm going to continue to do it, and the dog is getting increasingly angry, increasingly evil and mean, and it starts telling me, you don't understand, you're like a child playing with a toy or with a gun or something that you can't hope to control, that you're bouncing around between worlds that you don't understand. And I keep telling him, I do understand. It's like, no, you don't. You can't even see in 4 dimensions. And I was like, okay, well, what are you? What, you can? And I asked very specifically, what are you? Why should you care? And the answer I ask, what are you? And the answer I get is, we are the things, my bad, is like, we are the things that live between the worlds. And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about? And it tells me that it's in more than one at a time, that it is connected through a 4th dimension to many worlds, and that's the easy way to explain it. That not only is it in 4 dimensions, but it is in a little bit more, maybe 5 or 6, things that I'm struggling with 4, and they're doing 5 or 6, and then I'm like a peasant, like an ant, something that can be easily squashed and put down, and I'm being uppity and smart with it, and it's trying to help me out of the generosity of its heart, but it's so evil and malicious, and I can feel it. It's not trying to help me. There's something else going wrong with it, the blackness, and I keep telling it to fuck off, that I'm going to do whatever it is that I want. And the dog decides to kind of show me up, and it peels all the way back, and all the skin peels off, and something evil, something snake-like and slimy starts crawling out, speaking out of a mouth that's no longer even there and taunting me. It's a taunt that I can't even recreate here in this video. It's words that I don't even properly remember. It would be like the League of Legends taunt, which I always thought was pretty silly. Somebody challenges you to a fight and you can't resist, and it's saying things that I can barely understand, but all my animal instincts are crawling up inside of me, and it's telling me to fight, to fight, to fight like the animal that I am, like the monkey that I was born to be, like that I'm just a smart chimp, and that this thing is more or less a god to me. And I fell for it. I couldn't resist. It was something that I couldn't stop doing, so I started screaming like a big giant chimp and roaring and trying to do this alpha male bullshit, scare it away, and it was laughing the whole time, making me more and more angry. And that's when my wife kicked me in the ass because I was screaming in my sleep, and I popped back where I belonged, and I was kind of sweating and scared and worried and confused and all at the same time, thinking about all these worlds and dimensions and things, and I was wondering, did I just get sent back home? Was I somewhere else, really, the whole time? And that my conversation with the thing that lives between the worlds, if that wasn't planned from the beginning, if I did just get sent back home where I belong, whether I wanted to or not. And that left me very confused for the rest of the day. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the story, and I hope that you learned something somewhat useful. Drifter out.